Have you ever wanted to be a historical detective? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're about to crack a case that's over 1,000 years old, piecing together a forgotten kingdom from a single very cryptic list.
So the entire mystery boils down to this one question. Who were the Merehani? A medieval document mentions them, says they're incredibly powerful, and then, poof, they pretty much vanish from history. It's a real puzzle. So let's follow the clues.
All right, so our whole investigation kicks off with just one piece of evidence, a 9th century document that historians call the Bavarian Geographer's List. Now, its full title is the Descriptio Civitatum et Regionum ad septem Trinenmalen Plagen Danubii. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful. It basically just means a description of the cities and regions north of the Danube. It was written by some anonymous author, and you can think of it as a 9th century intelligence report. It's the Franks listing all the different peoples and their fortresses along their eastern border, trying to figure out, who their neighbors were, and more importantly, how strong they were. So, let's get our bearings and kind of paint a picture of this part of the world back in the 9th century. You've got the huge Frankish Empire over here to the west, then there are the Bohemians up north, the very powerful Bulgarians down south, and then smack dab in the middle is this area where we find both the Magyare and the Merehani. This is our crime scene, so to speak.
Now this is where it starts to get weird. The document itself holds the first major clues, and as we dig in, it feels like we're dealing with a tale of two different Moravians.
See, the geographer who wrote this seems to be listing peoples in a pretty logical order, kind of going from north to south. So first you get the Bohemians, then a group called the Marhari, who we're pretty sure are the Moravians. So logically, the next people on the list should be their southern neighbors, right? But instead, the list jumps way down to the Bulgarians, and then it mentions another group, the Merehani, who also sound an awful lot like Moravians. Why the strange break in the order? That right there is our first big clue.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The list doesn't just name people, it counts their fortresses, which was basically the medieval way of creating a power ranking. So just look at this data. The Bohemians, they've got 15 forts. Not bad. The first Moravians, the Marahari, have 11. Okay. The Bulgarians, who are a massive empire, only have 5 listed here. And the author actually notes that's because they were so numerous they didn't even need a ton of forts in this particular region. But then you look at the Merehani,
30! A staggering 30 fortresses. I mean, just let that sink in. That's almost 3 times as many as their Moravian neighbors, the Mahari. So you have to ask, who are these guys? Who is this mysterious, super powerful group that just pops up on the list with more strongholds than anyone else around?
And this isn't just speculation, The original Latin text says it right there, plain as day. Est populus convocant Merehanos, ipsi habent civitas trintatex trintix. There is a people called the Merehani. They have 30 fortresses. So the whole point is, we've got this 1,100-year-old document, and we have to explain that number.
So how do we crack this thing? Well, let's take a look at the leading theory, which is actually pretty brilliant. It suggests we're not looking at 2 totally separate peoples, but one kingdom made of 2 very different parts.
And the solution is it's so elegant. The key isn't that they were 2 different groups. The key is that they were 2 parts of the same recently expanded kingdom, the powerhouse state we now call Great Moravia.
let's break it down. You have the Mahari with their 11 fortresses. Think of them as the first Moravians, the OGs, the core territory of the kingdom. But then you have the Merehani, the ones with that massive list of 30 fortresses. They were the other Moravians, the people living in the recently conquered and clearly very powerful Principality of Nitra.
And this historical map really shows you how it all clicks into place. You can see these 2 distinct territories right here. Moravia itself, that's the original homeland, and then just to its east, you've got the Duchy of Nitra. Right around the time our list was being written, the Moravian ruler had conquered Nitra and forged them into one giant superstate.
So why the 2 different names? Well, think about it from the Frankish author's perspective. He's probably getting reports from spies and traders on the border, and he recognizes that these 2 groups are connected, but they're still distinct, So he uses this slight name change, Mahari versus Merehani, to separate the original core of the kingdom from this powerful new territory that he just absorbed, a territory he still saw as its own people.
Okay, so we've kind of solved the puzzle of the names and the numbers. But you might be asking, why does any of this matter? Well, let's zoom out and look at the big picture here, because this is all about the rise of the Great Moravian Kingdom. This little list
It's not just a boring collection of names. It's an absolutely priceless snapshot in time. It's like we're looking over the shoulder of a Frankish spy, getting a glimpse into the actual birth and the structure of one of Europe's very first major Slavic states. It shows us, right as it's happening, how Great Moravia was built, not just as some single tribe, but as this complex union of two really powerful principalities.
And when you put the two pieces of the puzzle together, this is what you get. The 11 fortresses of the Mashari and the 30 fortresses of the Merehani combine to form this absolute powerhouse, the Great Moravian State. You know, some sources from that time even called its huge territory a Slovak Sea. That's how big it was. A powerful Slavic kingdom that was a major player right on the edge of the Frankish Empire. So a little mystery on a dusty old list ends up revealing the birth of a nation. How cool is that?
So, we've cracked the case of the Merehani. We've turned a really confusing line in an old document into this amazing story of conquest and state building. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible secrets about lost kingdoms and forgotten peoples are still out there, just waiting to be found, hidden away in the margins of old maps?